Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia and this is the summary for the day of 1219 for the 26th of June. So Frontline Changes report is already out, and as I mentioned, this report usually I would love to put it on DPA War channel. I put it on the main channel because of the stupid algorithm. Yeah, they are totally rigged. So I have no choice but to put it on the biggest channel to get the maximum revenue I can get. Unfortunately, no, that sucks, but that's how it is. So anyway, we're going to jump straight into the frontline, not frontline, the situation report let's see where I should start from. Let's do it from the south then, to mix it up. So over in the southern flank, this is Kherson front. This is Kherson, and at the Kherson front, we have shelling reported over at Antonivka, as well as in Hulets. This is reported by the Russian Defense Ministry. The Ukrainians still mentioned about some attacks in the Dnipro direction. It's relatively unclear where it is, exactly where the fighting is. So let's just leave it at that. So otherwise, we go on to the next front line, the Zaporizhzhia front. So this is Zaporizhzhia, and then this is the Zaporizhzhia front. At this front line here, we have fighting reported over in the Kupiansk sector, with fighting reported at Kupiansk as well as Mali Shabaki. The frontline change, we already noted this in yesterday's situation report, where the Russian forces have captured almost the entirety of the Kupiansk sector. The Kupiansk southern half of the city. So this is already mentioned yesterday. And frontline changes report, I already also analyzed a little bit more on where the Ukrainians probably are. So, and also, my mouse is a bit weird. Like when this roller, this center one, this roller, when I zoom out, sometimes it zooms in instead. That's a bit funny. Yeah, this poor mouse. No. Anyway, over in Malatomachka, we have a geolocation of Russian forces going deeper into Malatomachka. So they have this is one of these rare updates at Malatomachka. Usually, we hope for more information for Malatomachka, but we don't have. And finally, some updates here showing that the Russians have indeed continued their battles over here in this sector. So there is this update. I'm not entirely sure how much to really put into this because of the lack of update for all this while. So let's see how this goes, whether the Russians will actually go deeper or fight harder in this sector. Malatomachka is strategically super important because if Malatomachka falls, Kharkiv will be next, and Kharkiv is a very, very important transport hub in this sector of Ukraine. So let's see how this goes. Over in the Huepole sector, we have shelling reported at Solotke, very far away from the front line, not super important. So that's all from the Zaporizhzhia front. We move on to the Koma front. So this is Koma. This is Koma, and at this front line in the southern flank, we have a major update from the Russian mapping. In the Russian mapping, they have mapped that this entire region here of Pavlivka and Vesela is under Russian control. So this is the big one. In yesterday's SITREP, I already mentioned the capture of Shevchenko, which is confirmed. Fighting is now moving towards Voskresenka and towards Komishvaha as well as Zelene Pole. So this frontline change at the south of Venepole, I probably also already mentioned in yesterday's SITREP. So the Russians are making some serious push in this sector, and this is probably the main offensive that we should look at now, as the Russians are going to go to try to secure this entire chunk of Donetsk, as well as this area here. So this is the weak spot for the rest of Donetsk Oblast that the Ukrainians hold. So the Russians will be keen to bring the battle beyond. Bring the battle beyond this part of Donetsk into Dnipropetrovsk, as well as the Zaporizhzhia region, so that they can then focus on the rest of Donetsk which is still a very big chunk. This is the rest of Donetsk Oblast. It is still a very, very huge chunk of territory. It's going to take a long time. So unless the Ukrainian military collapse, that means they run out of. You see, you saw the mouse. I was trying to zoom in. So unless the Ukrainians combat capability entirely collapse, yeah, it's going to take a long time. For now, we are tracking this collapse based on the area captured per day. So now it's at 20 square kilometers per day. I think it needs to reach around 50 square kilometers per day. Then we can really say that the Ukrainians really is unable to defend anymore. And then 50 will go to 100 very quickly, because they will not be able to even entrench themselves if the front line is moving this quickly. So yeah, so anyway, so over in the north, the rest of the Koma front, we have fighting reported at Oleksievka, Bakhmut, Zelený Kut, Novoukrainka, Odratny, Zaporizhzhia, Yalta, Zerka, Koma, Merne, Fedorivka, we just already mentioned. So you can see that the Russians are really concentrating on all places, with this geolocation confirming that the Russians have advanced south of Bodanivka. So they are trying to close up this salient here. This looks entirely inappropriate. You can see, this entirely inappropriate. So the Russians are going to chop it off, because because I don't want to crack some jokes that later got this video terminated. So, but anyway, yeah, that's happening around here. Oh my god, this is looking really bad. The more I look at it, the worse it becomes. But anyway, yeah, so let's not look at this anymore. So that's all for the Koma front. This advance is long time coming. So we shall see how this goes. We move on to the Pokrovsk front. So this is Pokrovsk, and at the Pokrovsk front, in this Pokrovsk sector, we have fighting reported over, over at Kharkiv, Muravka, Novomykolaivka, Novosahiyevka, Udashne, Kotline, and there is this frontline change over at Shevchenko, pretty significant one. We'll zoom in a while. Fighting reported towards Pokrovsk, which is also probably the one at Shevchenko. So this is the main change. The Russians are still pushing out. As I mentioned, this is the main objective here, to conquer the rest of Donetsk here. And in this area here, the Ukrainians are putting up pretty good defense, despite they still lost Novosahiyevka. But the Russians, like I mentioned, they are trying to push out in these directions as well. So the line in around Udashne Kotline is still pretty intact for now. And this front line here, usually there's not much frontline changes. However, this is a very interesting one. Russian forces geolocated along this forest line. And this leads to a massive capture of Shevchenko, with the Russian forces securing this entire forest defense line here. So the Russians can then put up a good defense here, and they're probably going to continue on by the look of it, and then linked up then totally cancel out this potential Ukrainian salient that is still stuck at Shevchenko. So this, which you see, we zoom in again. I was zooming out. So which means we are probably at the verge of re-securing of Shevchenko by the Russian forces in the near future, by the look of this. So, and we move on to the Minohrad sector. In the Minohrad sector, we have fighting reported at Melanivka, Merne, Mariinka, Kozatske, Promin, towards Minohrad, Lisievka. And this one here is Shevchenko, as mentioned just now, towards Pokrovsk. So this area here, like I said, as I usually say, this is usually the static line. I don't expect much changes here. This area here, the Ukrainians are still doing a very good and strong defense. The Russians doesn't seem to make much progress in this sector of the front line. And they know it. The Ukrainians are not dumb. I mean, if I can see it, then clearly the Ukrainians live or die on this. They probably also they almost definitely knows that the Russians are trying to flank them. So they know that at least the near one must be held. The further one is a bit more challenging because the basis is at Minograd, so flanking out from Minograd to this front line is a bit further, a bit harder. So the Russians are making progress. Shelling is reported at Mayak. So this is now in this northern region here, which I haven't decided what to call this. Whoops! I accidentally pressed the bookmark and then jumped to YouTube. Yeah. So anyway, so this front line, I haven't entirely sure what I want to call this. Yeah, maybe this can be a totally on its own name. But anyway, we're gonna call this like the northern flank of the Pokrovsk for now, which leads into the western flank of the New York front. Maybe we can call this Pavlivka for now. So anyway, this Pavlivka sector of the front line, we are fighting reported at Shevchenko, Pershi, shelling at Mayak, and then fighting reported towards Volodymyrivka, which is over here. Fighting is reported at Pavlivka, Rusinya, and Yablunivka. Shelling is geolocation of Russian forces heading up north from the Yablunivka region. So this is mentioned. So the Russians are pushing in all directions tentatively. We shall see how this goes. There is, from my perspective, there's this operation trying to create a blockade on Konstantinivka. This other one here is moving in the direction to cut off this road here leading to Pokrovsk. This is the flanking operation, and it looks like the operation at Pavlivka, Rusinya, they are pushing up north to continue this blockade. So probably heading up north is also potential. So this is the current situation, which is why this is a bit of a weird front line, because there's a mix of things. That's why I cut the line here, because the operation seems to be differing, but they're too close together. We have to report it as one. If not, it feels a bit disjointed. So, but we shall see how this goes. And over in the New York front, as mentioned earlier, this is New York, by the way. There is can I report this all as one? Okay, so we can basically call this Toretsk front again. This is Toretsk. So at the Toretsk front again, so this is Toretsk. Shelling is reported at Ilinivka. Yablunivka I already mentioned just now with this push in the north. This front line change there. Fighting is reported at Alexandro Kalinove, Romanivka, Shebenivka, battle within Toretsk, Dashne, Dilievka. There are some frontline changes noted here. Bilokhora and towards Ivanopilia. So this front line here, you can see, is also super activated. Everywhere there's arrows. Fighting is reported everywhere. So I think you cannot see the other one. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, my face covered it because of the zoom. Because I zoom out. So yeah, so this is how it looks like. This is where this one here, this is the frontline change at the Yablunivka's region. I can zoom in this one. This is just a tree line. It's not particularly very significant stuff over there. There's another one over at Dilievka. Despite it's a slightly smaller area, but this is a bit more significant because this is actually the entire street. Or at Dilievka, the Russian forces have captured this western street. So Ukrainians are still probably holding the eastern street in the north. And once this is overrun by the Russian forces, then Dilievka will be confirmed captured by the Russian forces. So there is some alleged defense line here. I'm not entirely sure if it's actually there because I didn't map that trench line. So let's see how this goes. So very activated front line in this sector. Over in the Bakhmut front, this is Bakhmut. In the central region, fighting is reported at Shevchenko micro-district, Chasivya, as well as Makove. So I like I usually say, I don't really expect too much from Chasivya region. In the northern flank, into the southern flank of the Siversk front. So Siversk is over here. This Siversk. In this front line here, this looks like a one thing on its own now. Fighting is reported at Bodane again. The Russians are trying again at Vasyukivka, Vidorivka, Perezne, Ivanivka, and Vimka. and if you look from this perspective, this looks like a consistent front line. The Russians are pushing in a general direction all at once. So we shall see whether this actually is anything. It's really hard to tell sometimes because the Russians do give up, or the Ukrainians put up too good of a defense. The Russians have to regroup. So that is a possibility. But the fighting at Bordane, as well as Veselkivka is a bit more regular than than it used to be. So definitely something to take note of. Especially the fighting here is starting to get a bit more and more common. Like Fedorivka, the last report was 1819. So then Perezne, the last one is on 4th. So it's getting a bit more, but not very certain yet. I'm not entirely certain about this yet. So let's wait and see how this continue to go. So so I want to cover the white spot. So we move on to the Siversk. In the northern flank of the Siversk front, we have fighting reported towards Siversk as well as fighting at Serbianka. So Horivka is not mentioned. Serbianka is mentioned by the Russians. So, but that's about it. Over at the Siversk front, we move on to the Liman front. So this is the Liman, also known as Krasny Liman, and in DPA speech we call this crispy lemon. Fighting is reported at Toretsk, Kolozyazi, Zalina Dolena, Serene, and further up north to the Oskil region will be Kharkivka and Rikudu. So Russians are making this push. This area here is largely feels pretty much a static warfare now. Doesn't feel like the Russians really wants to go to Liman for now. It looks like they are not that interested. The main interest seems to be in this direction, moving in the direction of Oskil. So Oskil is over here. Now this is Oskil. There's a dam here. Just in case you do not know, the river here is the Oskil River. So in this sector here, the Russians, as mentioned just now, Zelena Dolena, Serene, Kharkivka, Rikudu, they also attack Kharkivka, Okievka, as well as Novy Maya. So this front line is also full of arrows expanding in all directions. So definitely something to look out for. I believe the main objective is to straighten the front line as well as heading in the direction of Oskil. So to reach the Oskil River, I think this is the main action that the Russians want to do. But it's a bit hard. The Russians are also not doing much in this sector. This area here, the Russians are not doing a lot. The main offensive is mainly still this red area here. They are pushing in all directions like this. So we shall see how this goes. Over in the Borova front, the fighting is mainly in the northern sector, northern half. Fighting is reported as Zeleny High. Nova Krylyakivka. The Russians announced the capture of Nova Krylyakivka to my surprise today. Just now, they announced the capture of Nova Krylyakivka. So this is a bit of a surprise. We shall see whether this can be corroborated. Fighting is reported as Senkove as well. This Senkove one, tentatively, I don't think this is a crossing because in case you do not know, there's a river separating Senkove from Krylyakivka. So there's this river here. So there is no indications the Russians have crossed the river yet. So this could just be shelling. But we shall see how this continue to play out. If the Russians cross the river, it's going to be a very, very big news because the strategic situation will change entirely around here. Over in the Kupiansk front, so in the Kupiansk front, we have fighting reported in the east at Stepova Novoselivka. This is the usual. I don't expect too much from here. It's entirely not necessary for the Russians to push through here because of the developments around the Kupiansk city. The Russian forces are fighting at Petropavlivka towards Kupiansk, Holubivka, Kindrashevka, Malashakivka, and the Russians actually mentioned Sobolivka, which I have mapped it as an attack because the Russians did claim the capture of Moskovka. So this becomes an attack. If this is true, if the Russians did indeed capture Moskovka, then this attack is the continuation of the flanking operations around Kupiansk. And so this is going to be pretty concerning. If this is true, we really have zero ideas if the Russians actually did capture Pokrovsk. But I have to react by by this mention of Sobolivka for the first time. This is the first time Sobolivka is mentioned. Actually, not the first time. Many times. I just noticed. I usually put it as shelling, but in reaction of the announcement of the capture, I've decided to put this as an attack. So probably more accurate in that sense. So we shall see how this continue to play out. Over in the rest of the Voreshna front, this is Voreshna. In the north, we have fighting reported towards Putnikove, Krasny Pershe, Kanyamka, as well as Bolohivka. So this is also very interesting because it looks like really a push across the entire front line, but it doesn't look like any bigger. Like it could have been more arrows. So, but definitely the Russians are trying to draw a lot of Ukrainian attention into this area here, and putting in the light of what is happening around Kupiansk. This is good. This is a good diversion. To pull the Ukrainians away from the battle at Kupiansk region. So you can see the Russians are pushing here. So all these attacks around in this area here could potentially draw away precious resources from the battle needed to keep the Russians away over here. So that is the main gist of the situation here. We move on to the Kharkiv front. And before I go on, a happy birthday to you if your birthday today. And press the like button, subscribe as usual. And on the DPA War channel, we did this experiment where we see whether the comments will be able to confuse the algo to draw confuse the algo to think that the video is about something else. Doesn't seem to work. So yeah, that's the thing, because I think the viewership for a daily reporting channels tends to be capped by the size of the channel. So unfortunately, that's what it seems to be for now. So over in the Kharkiv front, we have fighting reported in still across the length of the front line. Ivashki continued to be attacked. Udi continued to be attacked. There is fighting reported over in this town called Zabine. I'm going to zoom in a while. And Voschansk is still mentioned, and Klipoke is also mentioned. So this area here is also doing this stretching operation. They are doing yoga around here, military yoga, trying to stretch the Ukrainians across this entire very long front line. The front line here is 100 kilometers. So this is not a small one. Just by this icon to another icon, this is already 90 kilometers. So these two furthest town that was attacked is 90 kilometers wide. So this is the very big front line. So like I say, yoga. So at Zabine, this is the first time Zabine is mentioned. It's over here. You can see the very big word as it loads. And this is Verchansky Kotori. This is Taike. Previously, the Russians are attacking Verchansky Kotori and Taike region. There's a possibility that the Russians have advanced through the forest and they have reached the region around Zabine, where the Ukrainians are holding position. So that's why the fighting is over here. There's a possibility because the Russians have entered into the forest. So they could potentially over time have taken over the forest, and they are now pushing south towards Zabine. That's a possibility. So this is the first time Zabine is mentioned, or Zibine is mentioned. I've never seen this place mentioned before. See, I want to zoom out, it zoom in. It's the CIA. The CIA got us. Okay, and then we go to the last front line, the Sumy front. So at the Sumy front, I have no icons. Okay, I have nothing to report here. Somehow, I forgot. I wonder why. Actually, I don't know why. Honestly, why did I not map the Russian reports? Oh, I have no idea. Anyway, yeah. So I have nothing to report on Sumy. Just as it is. I should have mapped everything, but why did I not have Sumy? Let me check my reports. Sumy. So, actually, we should have things. Yeah, I think I missed out. I think I might have missed out in my reporting. So we have Novosibirsk. So this report is 26. So this is 26. So yeah, you have to now watch me do mapping. So 26th of June. So I need to zoom in because it's a bit too small for me to read. Yeah, so the 6th of June. So there is all these places, Novosibirsk, and whoa, and this is Krapishkina. So this is also 26th of June. And then we have Solyaniki. Where is Solyaniki? I have no idea. Okay, we will do that next later. So we have Vereshkine. Vereshkine is here. Vereshkine. So 26th of June. Yeah, so this is how I do mapping. Just in case you do not know, yeah, everything has to be done manually. And then Yunakivka. And this process of mapping could take me potentially 3 hours. It used to take me 4 hours. So I try to reduce it. Nowadays is maybe I can drop to 2.5. Lately, I did with this a slight improvement of the way how I map it. So now suddenly we go into this super slow pace because I'm doing mapping. And I really just want to show you how I do mapping anyway. Yeah, because some of you guys probably have not been here following me for a long time enough, and to know how I do it. And you thought that all these things drop down from the sky. So no, it didn't drop down from the sky. I have to do it. So Solyaniki, or is Solyaniki. So this is this is never mentioned before. This is part of the Tekino sector. So we have some fighting report here. Fighting reported at Solyaniki 2025 26 June. So that is the, yeah. So we have Tekino, we have fighting reported in this direction. Otherwise the rest is over in this area here, where the Russians seems to be concentrating on trying to close up this gap. Fighting is reported at Vereshkina, Yunakivka. They still need to consolidate the southern half and move the fighting moving into the direction of Novosibirsk and Krapishkina. There is this frontline change I already noted in yesterday's SITREP, where the Russian forces secured the outskirts of Oleksievka, but mainly that's about it. So that's it. Thank you for watching. Do press the like button, subscribe. This is the summary for the day of 1219 for the 26th of June. Yeah, and I'll see you guys in the next update.